Hey guys, McClure here again, and today I'm back with another review, episode 2 of the Films and Games Review series. Alright, so if you remember the rules, I highly recommend watch my first video, so go ahead and watch just that one first, plus I explain a good important rule in there, and my opinion, remember. So if you do not like this movie, that's fine, as long as you don't leave a hate comment, alright? So here is my episode 2 on my Films and Games review series. Here we are. Next one is Kong Skull Island. Now, I'm reviewing the MonsterVerse films because I want to start out with those. So yeah, Kong Skull Island. What can I say about this film? So, bit of history on this movie. Alright, so here it is. So, once I saw that they were bringing back King Kong, you gotta remember how I was back in the day with 2014. I didn't like 2014, but of course, now my opinion has changed on that one. So yeah, my opinion has changed, but this was back then in 2017, and I was not a big fan of the movie at all. So whenever all right, we're gonna be bringing King Kong here, it's like, oh goodness sakes, what they're gonna do to my boy Kong. And I saw it, I was just kind of like 50-50. I'm just like, I don't know, but at the same time, I don't mind watching it. And then I saw it, and it surprised me, and I thought it was good. You know, I thought it was a great King Kong film. So yeah, I think it's a good King Kong film. It's great. It's fun movie. So yeah. So I'll get into the story. Yeah, I'm cutting straight to the chase because really not that much big a history on this film, and I really do not have a lot to talk about this one. So yeah, story. The funny thing is that this is kind of a prequel to 2014. So this takes place in 1973, and by the way, I might as well just get into this now. Speaking of prequels, there are comic books in this series. Yeah, comic books. So there's one for Kong Skull Island, which acts like a sequel. Um, I believe, but I'll get into the rest. Godzilla 214 had a prequel comic book, Godzilla Awakening, and basically showing off the events that happened before the events of the 2014 film. This is Kong Skull Island, I believe. In a way, I think it's a sequel comic to Kong Skull Island, I believe. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters has one, Godzilla Aftershock, even Godzilla vs. Kong has a prequel comic book, but if Godzilla, it's both Godzilla and Kong, so each of them have prequel comic books from their own perspective of the story, I believe, what leads up into GVK. So for Godzilla, Godzilla Dominion, and for Kong, what was it? Kong, yeah, Kingdom Kong, that's what it was. It's Kingdom Kong. So yeah, there's a prequel comic book thing going on, and plus when I watched the DVD, that's what they showed. So as a cool thing, so yeah, this isn't like a 2-disc special edition like I believe 2014. That's because I bought this at a different time. I saw the movie a few times, but I surprisingly did not get the DVD yet. And I probably must have gotten it like last year or something. So yeah, here it is, Kong Skull Island, and the story takes place in 1973, but the movie opens up, I believe, in World War II. So I believe it opens up in World War II, and you got this. There's a Japanese pilot, and then there's this American pilot. I don't know if they're called pilots, but they're both soldiers, and they're fighting each other. And then, by the way, spoiler alert. And then probably, I would say my favorite opening scene in the MonsterVerse of all time is when they're fighting each other, and then Kong comes in and interrupts their fight, along with the soundtrack. And then the last we see a glimpse of Kong in Marlowe's eyes, and then it cuts to the title sequence. Possibly, in my opinion, my favorite opening sequence in the MonsterVerse. And it just might be my favorite opening sequence in a King Kong film, I believe. So, one of my favorite opening sequences in a monster movie, a MonsterVerse film, a monster movie, and a King Kong film. Yeah. So this is the DVD copy I have here, and while I'm showing off here, I'll talk first about the story. So the rest of the story features. Alright, so it takes place in 1974, like I said. Takes place in the Vietnam War era. So a nice, interesting setting for a monster movie. And there's this guy, John Goodman, and I forgot this character's name, but he has like glasses. I forgot this character's name. But he plays an important key part in the MonsterVerse for a little bit. And I forgot this dude's name, but they're going somewhere, and then they're getting ready to investigate this island in the South Pacific, I believe. I don't know, but like been a little bit, but once again, guys, bear with me about my explaining on the story of these movies. I'm gonna try my best here, and then they're gonna drop bombs on these islands, and they get past this through this thunderstorm, and then they get together. I believe the guy who plays Tom Hiddleston. I hope that's the right name I'm saying. Tom Hiddleston, the guy who played Loki from the Avengers, Samuel Jackson as Pack Reed. You got Brie Larson's character as Weaver, I believe her name is. And they get together, they go to the island, they're investigating, and then they're dropping bombs for some reason because they're trying to just investigate something. And like experimenting, and what happened, like, of course, terrible thing that they're doing. I don't know why they're doing it, but like I get it. They never discovered it before, but come on, guys, it's an island. It's gonna have living things on it. Why do you want to do that anyway? And then, of course, made a huge mistake. Kong comes in and wrecks their stuff. Basically, he comes in, Hulk smashes them, and he just annihilates them. They fail miserably to defend themselves, and pretty much 50% of them die. Of course, our main characters survive, and they're stuck on the island now. And then there's this other group of this other group of military men that survive, and they're now living on the island, and they're trying to find a way out of here. Maybe trying to get off the island. And as they're surviving, they encounter basically your typical King Kong story in a way, sort of. Only the island's different. They encounter creatures, but there's like two groups of people. You got one where Samuel Jackson, I believe, is leading them, and then you got one where, I believe, you got one group where Weaver's there, Tom Hiddleston, if that's his name. I hope that's his name. And then I believe John Goodman is with one of the teams. Yeah. And then they're surviving on the island. One of the guys get lost. He encounters Kong, but Kong doesn't see him. He fights a giant squid. Basically, it's called the Meyer Squid. And of course, we learn like every King Kong movie, he's the last of his kind. The only movie that did that differently was King Kong Lives, but I never seen that one yet. And watching Goji Fan 93's review, yeah, I do not understand the hate for that movie. I really don't. So, they're on the island, they're surviving through creatures and that stuff, they're encountering different creatures. Chaos, of course, happens. There's this giant spider creature called Mother Longlegs, which is ironic because there's a there's a spider in real life called the Daddy Longlegs. So, Daddy Longleg. So I guess they were trying to reference that. And there's weird, ugly looking bird creatures. There's I believe yeah, and there's a boneyard scene where we do see dinosaurs skeletons there. So that possibly means that dinosaurs used to inhabit the island, which is of course referencing to the classic King Kong films. King Kong films, and we do see in the Boneyard, if you can see that there, of course, Kong's ancestors there, his parents. Not really his ancestors, his parents there. And we find out later in the movie, due to this guy, and of course, he's Marlowe, the survivor, but unfortunately, he, he became friends with the Japanese soldier, but unfortunately, the Japanese dude, he got killed, and by who, you ask? All of you know it. These hostile creatures called the Skullcrawlers, and we learn from Marlowe that these are hostile creatures on Skull Island. They're they're basically like they're not like your ordinary predators like lions, tigers, bears, oh my, or the carnivorous dinosaurs. No, these guys are on a whole nother level of like craziness and destructive. They're hostile, really. They're hostile creatures, and they're the reason why Kong species are extinct. And because, according to the backstory, Kong species had a war with these guys. And Kong species were fighting them off like it was a whole war thing. Basically like Alien versus Predator, a ancient rivalry between both species. And I think Kong, the war's still going on because Kong is the last survivor. And unfortunately, the sad backstory is that Kong's parents were the last of the war, and they tried their best, but then they started dying off. But then, before their deaths happened, Kong's mother gave birth to him. He was born in the middle of a war. So, and then he witnessed the death of his parents as a child. So, by the Skullcrawlers, and ever since, he had this hatred towards the creatures, and he's basically getting revenge. He's killing them, you know, but the thing is, I think they were sleeping, but then that's when the people came, they dropped bombs, and it basically, from according to Marlowe, it woke the Skullcrawlers up, so now Kong's peed off, and then he's hunting down the Skullcrawlers, hunting them down, he's taking them on, and there's a cool scene where he does help a Skir Buffalo out. Yeah, that's another creature, the Skir Buffalo. It's a herbivore creature, and then Weaver's there trying to help it out, and then Kong comes in and helps her in a way, but he's still sus of her, I guess you could say. And then I don't want to, of course, I don't want to get into spoiler territory. I'll just leave it off here. And of course, there's a big leader Skullcrawler, according to Marlowe. And of course, in the end, it fights Kong. They have a big battle. And of course, this dude, because Pack Reed's men were killed by Kong, he started a whole rivalry with Kong now, and he wants to destroy him. So there you go. And it brought him, like, flashbacks, I believe, because he was in the war. Like, so yeah, that's a story. Sorry if that was cringe-worthy. I'm sorry if that was terrible. But I do tell you guys, I'm not that good when explaining. To me, at least, I'm not that good at explaining storylines of movies when reviewing them, talking about them. But that's the best I can explain about this movie. So yeah. So, alright, so let's get into this. Alright? So what they did with this movie, like with Godzilla 2014, they put Kong in a different type of story. They made him different. They changed the whole story in a way, but you still have a lot of that source material from the original King Kong classic story. Of course, his backstory it's no joke. It's a reference to Batman in a way where he witnessed his parents' death. Um, even though it's a it's a kind of a copy story, it's still sad. It really is, and pretty much the CGI in this movie, it's good. It's great. The action is great, and then you got good action scenes. It's a fun movie. It's popcorn action. It's a popcorn flick basically, and got great memorable scenes, Great, great color themes in the movie. I like the orange theme color of the film, and I did like Skull Island in this movie. Not as good as Peter Jackson's King Kong, but you know, of course, like with Godzilla 2014, you have to go into this movie like it's its own type of thing. Only unlike 2014, it tried to go a whole lot different. This one still keeps a lot of the originality, like a lot of what was original and iconic about the original King Kong films, which is cool. And King Kong in this movie trying to go back to the monster type roots where he has a more monstrous creature like look, like 1933, like basically like trying to go back to 1976, 1933, and even like the Toho King Kong movies where he looked more like a monster, not like realistic like Peter Jackson's King Kong. And the highlights in this movie, I'll talk about the positives and the negatives in this film. So, a cool thing, they're trying to pay homage to King Kong in this movie. Like, his design is supposed to pay a little bit of reference to the 1933 King Kong design. And at first I didn't see it, but actually comparing images, yeah, you can kind of see it. So it's pretty cool that they did that. And his attitude in the movie, reference to 1933 and 1976, he just has that aggressive ferocity for him. He's just a beast. But at the same, I'm glad they kept that part of him, that he's savage and all that stuff. But the thing that lacked, well, I'll get into that when I talk about the negatives. So yeah, that's a positive side. And then you got the characters. The characters in here are the characters here. They're more passable than 2014, and you got three favorites this time. You got John Goodman's character, and then you got of course Samuel Jackson, which you can see him there, and of course you got Marlowe, played by John C. Reilly. So I'm like, I find it pretty crazy. I didn't know this guy played Wreck-It Ralph. And now looking at it now, you can kind of hear it. And he references another type of creature in the movie. We don't see it, but he references it. We hear a bird chirping sound. And apparently, according to him, it's a flippin' ant. So, like, well, that's disturbing. Like, it sounds like a bird, but it's an ant. So, pretty terrifying there. Oh, yeah, there's another creature in the movie, a cool creature, which it disguises itself as like a log, but it's like kind of like cricket-ish looking. So, I do not know the names of these creatures, only other than I know the name of the Mire squid. It's the Mire squid and the skull crawler here. And then, of course, good motion capture and great fight scenes. And you got good lines in this movie. He got funny comedy moments from Marlowe, a little bit of like that from Samuel Jackson, I believe, and then my favorite line in the movie is from John Goodman's character. Again, like with Godzilla 2014, forgive me if this is cringy, but like something about like ancient species roamed this earth long before mankind, and then I believe it's cut up in a way where it's in the trailer, but I still like to think it's like this, like get us home with proof monsters exist. So, great lines, great delivery from John Goodman. I like those lines. I really do. You know, it's a fun movie, and it's great. It's a great King Kong film. It's a fun flick. And it tries to do, and what makes this movie pretty good is that it respects King Kong in a little way, but in a way, it kind of does something different. So, unlike with 2014, it tried to do almost full on something different. Here, it's like 50-50. It does something different, but still stays to the classic roots of King Kong. So, it's entertaining. It's not boring at points. Like with some points in 2014. No offense to people that like that movie or to the director Gareth Edwards. So yeah, it's a fun MonsterVerse film. It really is. And Marlowe is a whole lot of fun. And there's a touching moment. I'll spoil this, but I have to explain this. There's probably the only most sympathetical character, along with Gia and GVK, I will say, where I believe, spoiler alert, there's like a ending scene where it shows him that he gets home, and he finally gets home to his wife and his kid, and his kid looked like he don't even recognize him. So he probably must have been born when his dad left. So, and the mother, you see that she has to introduce him to the dad, who is Marlowe. Very, it's a pretty emotional, and he just goes back to like his old, like just like his good old days. He's eating a hot dog, he's drinking, he's watching football or sports on the TV. It just ends, and of course, spoiler: the build up to King of the Monsters is amazing in this movie. The end credit scene, very good. Like, I like the lines like "there are more out there" and that stuff. And then and my favorite line, along with the movie, like along with John Goodman's line, saying he's basically saying Kong is not the only king. And you got the great soundtrack coming in, and like bum bum bum, and then you see cave paintings of Mothra, King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Godzilla, and then you get Godzilla's classic roar. And this is, when it got really into the cinematic universe. So yeah. So, really not that much to say about the positives, but it really is great of a film, in my opinion. Um, the negatives, alright. Remember I was talking about Kong earlier? I'm glad they kept that, he's a beast on the battlefield. He's a he's a fighter, he's a survivor, he is aggressive, he's brutal, he's ferocious, he's such a beast, but that's a thing that's part of his character when he's on the battlefield and all that stuff. He's a bad butt in this movie, and he's cool, but they miss that factor of him of making him sympathetical, like with Peter Jackson's King Kong. That was just missing. I get they do kind of try to show it in the movie, but it just felt a little forced. Like they tried, but but it was just never on the same scale of anything like Peter Jackson's King Kong. And King Kong is meant to be that type of sympathetic character, and that's what really lacked it. But oh well, Kong's still pretty cool in this movie. And anything else other than that? Oh yeah, I guess the film. I guess you could say, I really do not have that much to say about the negatives of this movie, to be honest. Other than that, um, oh yeah, of course, if you compare it to other King Kong films, of course, the fights, you know, they're good and all, but you gotta admit, at least for your old school King Kong fans, not as epic as Peter Jackson's King Kong. And the soundtrack, it's decent. Decent soundtrack, but not as iconic as 2014. Probably the least well known soundtrack in the Monsterverse. And really, that's pretty much. I really have not that much. Well, I guess the island's not as threatening appearance looking like in Peter Jackson's King Kong or any other Skull Islands. You really don't get to see that much of creatures, but you do get to see plenty of them, so that's not really that much of a negative. That's really not a negative, to be honest. Um, and the characters, even though unfortunately no dinosaurs in this movie, you do get the skull crawlers, which are similar. You do get cool, unique looking creatures, in my opinion. So yeah, I really do not have that much to say about the negatives about this film. I just think it's a great monster movie, you know. So yeah, I really do not have that much to say other than it's a good King Kong film. So my rating about this movie, Oh yeah, one final positive is that this movie brought King Kong back. So I really like that. Makes me glad, makes me happy. So yeah, and according to all that, I would give this film an 8 out of 10. Kong Skull Island. So Kong Skull Island gets an 8 out of 10. So that is my review of Kong Skull Island. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think of this film? Is it your least favorite? If it's your least favorite MonsterVerse film, is it in the middle tier? Whether you're not a fan of it, but you like it, or it's your favorite MonsterVerse film? Well, let me know down in the comment section below. And of course, King of the Monsters. My next review is King of the Monsters, of course. I'll probably have a bit more to talk about that movie than this movie, but other than that, that's it. So yeah, as McFlurry always says, have a good night, and in the morning, of course, have a good morning, have a good afternoon, and have a good day, and peace out, and stay tuned for more videos.